Hey guys, welcome back to the Ball and Crane. We've got another great guest for you all today, Dustin McCorkle. He is the general manager for the Lubbock Matadors on the show today. Thanks so much for being here, Dustin. Appreciate it.
Sydney, I appreciate you inviting me on.
Dustin, I'm going to hand the reins over to you. I'd love to learn more about your background. You've got a pretty impressive resume as far as the sporting world is concerned. So I'd love to let you take over and talk about your story and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think the big thing for me was I grew up playing sports, connected with it as early as 4 years old, specifically soccer being my favorite sport. But I also played football for a while as well. So had a passion for sports, and I think a lot of people who really get into it, they do as well. But most of us aren't capable enough to play beyond the college realm. So college is kind of where my career stopped, but I loved it so much, and I wanted to stay connected to sports because to me, what I've learned, sports has a way of emotionally connecting people in a powerful way that no other industry, in my opinion, is able to do
Yeah.
outside of maybe movies and entertainment. So um, I always tell people, like, with every team I work with, it's the one moment in time that you can, no matter what you look like, what religion you are, like we're all wrapped up, got our arms around each other, we're clapping and cheering for the same thing. And that's what I love about sports is just provides memories for people, creates connecting points. And so I had no idea how to do that outside of coaching. And I was fortunate enough, I played 2 years of college soccer at Dallas Baptist University, and after my sophomore year, we placed fifth in the nation. We got back and they cut our program, which is highly disappointing for me. And when you talk about mental health, I think that was a moment in time where I had to like check myself because I'm in a moment where I'm playing something I love. We just accomplished something amazing that the school program has never done, and we get called into a room right before the break to be told that they're letting go of our program after the success. So I maybe immaturely, but felt like it was right. Decided at that moment I'm not staying at that school,
Mhm.
and decided I wanted to go be at a bigger environment because I think what I learned while I was at Dallas Baptist University was like I loved the moments of travel, the teammates, the experience of soccer, and getting to do all of those things. But I felt like I was at too small of an environment, and I wanted to go experience a bigger college,
Sure.
power level experience. So I ended up choosing Texas Tech University. For those who don't know, I'm a first generation college student, so no one had a real guiding light on how to transfer or what to ask. So I jump into Texas Tech University and find out after I get there that I've lost 32 hours of school.
Whoa.
So huge hit to how far I've come, and I don't come from money, so the idea of having to pay for another year and a half of school to get restarted was a lot to get a hold of. But fortunately for me, I made some great connections, some friends immediately when I got to Tech, and Texas Tech gave back to me in a great way. Coming into my senior year, I was doing sports management, exercise sports science, and I knew potentially that I wanted to do maybe like PT because that might keep me around the
Yeah.
sporting world. And I like working with people, and I thought that would be awesome. But by the time I was able to graduate, I needed to graduate and not do more school because I needed to go make money. So I called the athletic department just asking if there were any jobs available and found out there was one position available for ticket sales, which is how I got my start in sports. So
Wow.
I took that job. Carly Rieger was the boss at the time here, who was implementing this new ticket sales program that nobody had done here before. And I was last hired and then first on the board when it came to sales. So she had previously worked in the NHL and the NBA and told me, hey, listen, like, this is a career that you can make out of this. And I was like, no, I've never even heard of this. So she's like, let me make a couple calls. So she ended up connecting me, and I got like six different um, sports job opportunities presented to me all through just calling and everything else.
Wow.
And it came down to the New York Mets, San Diego Padres, and the Atlanta Hawks.
How do you
And
choose?
yeah, so San Diego sounds beautiful and amazing, and it is. And I hope one day that I get to retire and go live out there. Um, but I think what ended up making me choose what I wanted to do was I was told Atlanta was one of the most difficult markets in sports to sell.
Mhm.
They said if you can go do well in Atlanta, you can go do well anywhere. And so, we talk about growth mindset. To me, like I've always challenged myself to anything I'm doing, even if I'm not the best, to work at it. And so I thought, okay, it's not about the logo, it's not about the location, but it's about the people that are going to invest in me and the opportunity. And so
Mhm.
every job was the same position, but I ended up choosing Atlanta because I just felt like the people there were going to develop me into a career professional for sports.
Yeah.
What that looked like, I didn't know at the time, but and what's really crazy, I took the job without even seeing Atlanta. So as soon as I graduated from,
Golly.
yeah, as
I
soon as I
went in
graduated,
blind.
as soon as I graduated from tech, I packed my brother's truck. He gave it to me, which I'm forever grateful for. He joined the military and was like, "Hey, I don't need this. You need a car." So I grabbed whatever I could, and unfortunately for me at the time, or maybe fortunately, based on how you look at it, I had a blow up mattress, a box TV, and two suits.
Well,
And that's what I took with me out to Atlanta. And that's how I slept on that for the first 8 months to a year. While I was trying to figure out, I took basically a $10 an hour job that wasn't guaranteed full time. Uh, but and they bring in like 15 to 16 people from all over the country that are all competing for promotions.
sure.
So all of us are on 8-month contracts, nothing guaranteed, and your goal is to try to get promoted within those 8 months.
Yeah.
So
Challenge accepted, it sounds like. As a guy who
yeah,
likes a challenge, man.
yeah, and what made it even more challenging was when I got out there, I was actually going to work for, they had a NHL team as well. 2 weeks after I started, they sold the NHL team. So the Winnipeg Jets
Yeah.
used to be the Atlanta Thrashers, and that was part of the sell as well. Um, and then a month in, the NBA lockout hit. So this was back in June 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So I got trained, and as soon as I'm ready to go, the lockout ensues. And so people are mad in Atlanta that the hockey team got sold. They're mad at
Mm-hmm.
ownership, and then they're cussing you out on the phone just for calling them.
Sure.
Uh, and then you call other people to talk about the NBA, and they're like, "Why are you calling me? There's not going to be a season. Like these millionaires are complaining about money. Like." And
Yeah.
every day was an absolute grind.
Mm-hmm.
So what ended up separating me to be able to start my career, I think, was because I didn't have the money. All my friends that were also in the same positions as me, their parents flew them home for the holidays.
Uh-huh.
So if you remember in 2011 Thanksgiving, the lockout ended that
Mm-hmm.
day.
Yeah.
I was the only one still in town. So I didn't get to go home for Thanksgiving. So I drove to the office and started calling people that were like, call me when the NBA lockout ends. And then the phones were ringing off the hook
Oh
because
my gosh.
now we know that there's a season, but I was the only one there to answer. So,
Yeah, you're the only one working.
um, yeah, so it's like I took a negative situation of being alone on Thanksgiving and turned it into a career
Yeah, of
because uh, my bosses looked at me differently for sticking around and being there and available. So, uh,
course.
I was fortunate enough to get 5 promotions in my 4.5 years with the Hawks.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I started out as an entry level ticket sailor, and then I finished in their premium sales and sponsorship department. So it was amazing, loved it. But I identified pretty early on I wanted to get into management.
Mm.
And the cool part about if you understand the sales of a business, there is an opportunity for you to go be a president one day of a team.
Yeah.
And I think people they're not thinking about necessarily the business side always.
Sure.
Me, it was like, I'm not going to be an athlete, and it is very difficult to get into the coaching or strength and conditioning side of things to be able to
Yeah.
do. You have to know somebody. But my hard work can get me to a president level one day
Hmm.
through this career path, because if you know how to drive revenue for an organization, you'll always have a job.
Yeah.
So from that, I ended up going to New Jersey with the Devils and moved to my first ever management role. I got 3 promotions in a little over 2 years there, which was amazing. But as every great story goes, I met a girl that brought me back to Lubbock, Texas. So, um,
But are you mad about
no,
it?
it was amazing. I love living in New York City. It
Yeah.
was awesome. There's so much to do up there, and I got married, and I always tell her she won. So I came back here, and um, I worked for Texas Tech Athletics for a year. And the one thing I always share with people, that was the first time I got a taste of working for something that I root for.
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't enjoy it. You know, I went from overseeing 50 something people and helping run the fourth busiest venue in the country in the biggest city in the world to now I'm kind of working for myself
Yeah.
in a college athletics situation where I'd like to be watching games and
Hmm.
enjoying myself, but I'm not, I'm working.
Yeah.
And so like when friends come in town, I'm not getting to go tailgating. I'm having to work, you know?
Sure.
And so it's just something to think about for anyone that's wanting to work in sports, specifically is like, I've always told me like, I'll never work for the Dallas Cowboys. Like
Hmm.
that is the one team I want to keep as a fan. And, we
Makes
just
sense.
separate it, so
Yeah.
I don't want to learn anything is going to make me want to hate them for any reason. Cause that's just the one team I'm
Yeah.
going to, to myself.
Loyal.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so I got back into, uh, sports. I started my own sports consulting business
Cool.
and ended up picking clients up all over the world. And I was traveling every week, flying to different cities, training staffs, and consulting with sports organizations who were struggling in their sales world, whether it be ticket sales or sponsorship or even some management positions. You don't have to be that old to get somebody to see something in you and want to put you in a position that you're not necessarily ready for.
Of course.
Uh, but it's important that we spend time cultivating that and making sure that we're empowering our people to be successful. So it was great. I was able to work with some younger managers and get them to a place where they could talk to me about stuff that they're uncomfortable sharing with their boss, that they don't know what to do or how to motivate or whatever those things are,
Yeah.
and then get to work with them. And that kind of led me into the soccer world again. So I took a chief revenue officer job with New Mexico United. We averaged over 13,000 fans a game out there. Unique market, totally different. I was driving back and forth, like living in Lubbock, and then you cross over into New Mexico
Boy.
and Albuquerque. It was like two different worlds, especially
Yeah.
during the COVID years. So, um, yeah, it's like all masks, keep to yourself, and then you come back here and people are out and about and
Yeah.
living. So, talk
Culture
about,
shock.
yeah, it was just like every week I was like, having to prepare myself for whatever state I'm going to be in,
Yeah.
literally, of what I'm going to be doing, which is a challenge in of itself.
Yep.
Um, but I ended up doing really well there. I grew their business by $2.5 million, and then we had our second child, and realized that traveling every week is not going to work out anymore.
Yeah.
So, um, 2 weeks later, I heard Lubbock was getting a soccer team, and fortunate for me, the people that know the head investor had reached out on my behalf already and said, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but you got a guy in Lubbock that's no brainer for you."
How
Um,
cool. That's got to
yeah,
feel good.
yeah, it did. And so, what's really amazing for me is this is the first time I've gotten to build a program and lead an organization in my own city.
Yeah.
Like my family for the last 5 years hasn't gotten to see anything of what I do because I've been doing it everywhere else.
Sure.
Uh, and so what's been really fun is like I love and care about Lubbock. So I hope when people come to Matadors games that they feel Lubbock culture
Hmm.
and the way that we do things. We write our own scripts. Like our games are unique and different from any other NPSL game that you go to because I want to make sure that community is thought of first.
Yeah.
Uh, People who could care less about soccer are having fun.
Mm.
They just happen to be at a soccer game.
Yeah.
Uh, and we're able to integrate community organizations, nonprofits, and businesses that are supporting us in a way that feels authentic and connects people. So
Yeah.
that's been the main goal here. And so I've absolutely loved it. It's been amazing.
Yeah. And just your story, Dustin, like starting out as an athlete and it almost sounding like it comes full circle. Like now you're on the other side of it, getting to help others and lead these teams. And a couple of themes that stuck out to me was one, adversity, but also being your biggest advocate. And I had a guest last week that talked about, if you're not your biggest advocate, then who else is going to be that? And so just the way that you faced adversity and just worked your way up and worked hard and embraced the challenges that came and to get where you are now. It's amazing. And I don't know how many people you shared that story with, but I'm inspired. I think it's an amazing story of perseverance. And I love that it ends here in Lubbock and that you're getting to live and work in the community that you love with your family. And like you said, your family gets to see what you do and what you love.
Yeah. Well, I'll echo that point. I had a mentor early on tell me the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Hmm.
Too often, people in their careers sit back and wait, and then they are frustrated when things and opportunities don't come their way.
Yeah.
I've always been the first to raise my hand to let the person who's in control of that next thing, let them know what my intentions are, and then map out a plan on what they need from me to get there.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think, again, when you talk about going into the mental health side of things, it's like there's so many different perspectives that you can have, but you got to have the ability to invest in yourself um, and speak things into existence, but
Yeah.
also work for them too. So having clear communication is important with everyone you work with. I think personally and professionally,
Yeah.
uh, unmet expectations is where things go wrong. So I'm a big believer in just open dialogue. Um, I think a lot of people like to say, "Oh, I have an open door policy," but the reality is like, do your people feel comfortable enough to come talk to you? And even this week, I had two players, come grab me with something that felt like difficult conversations, but
Yeah.
the fact that they were even comfortable enough with me, a lot of people let that intimidate them out of the conversation, but we
Hmm.
were able to have it because I hope that means I'm setting a safe space, for people to open up and know that like it's not just about what's happening on the field, like it's about what's happening off the field as well, that
Yeah.
we got to be successful in all areas of our lives.
Yeah. How do you think you promote that as a leader, Dustin? It sounds like you're doing it and you acknowledge that. But what is it about you that makes you approachable? Like you said, you've got players, and we were actually talking a little bit before we jumped on here, but you've had players from around the world who struggle with their mental health when they're adjusting to Lubbock and getting to know the culture and the environment. So, what is it about you think that helps people be able to approach you and talk to you about otherwise difficult things?
Yeah, well, number one, I hope it's building a relationship that you care about somebody beyond the work that they do. And then it's checking in. I think I don't get to spend as much time with the players as I would like to. That's coach and an assistant coach. They're in the training sessions every day. They're in the apartments that they're in as well. But
Yeah.
it's checking in with them, say, hey, what are you seeing? What are you noticing? Asking those questions rather than just, you know, hey, we're here for 3 months. Like people can figure it out.
Mm.
I do have to recognize the fact that what's amazing about our club, what's different about anything that we have in Lubbock, is we literally have 20 different nations all represented on our field.
How cool
Um,
is that?
it's amazing. And our supporters group, if you come to a game, they have a flag for every country that's playing,
Mm.
representing Lubbock that flies at our game. And that means something when these guys walk out on the field and can see that, like, hey, like these people are embracing where I come from. And they're proud
Yeah.
of me putting on the Lubbock badge and being a Matador. Uh, but, you know, with that comes cultural differences.
Hmm.
So what we probably have to do more so than anybody with our sport, when we have players from all different walks of life, from all different parts of the world, is like making sure that it's very easy for communication to get lost in
Yeah.
translation. Uh, some people, the way they joke and play is different from a different part of the world, you know. And so I think that was one of the biggest things that I took from year one. Was we did have a couple instances year one where I heard some things, and it's like people got upset because something was said and it wasn't meant to be taken in a way that it was, but
Yeah.
where they're from, that means something different. And so this year it was taking learnings and being open to also recognizing, like, hey, we didn't really think through this piece of our organization last year because A, it happened so quickly, and B, I just think that, you know, we take for granted sometimes that um, you're a team and you just expect everybody to be a teammate right off the bat. And
Sure.
that's not how that works. So we put some intentional things in place this year, some games for guys to connect, learn, and, you know, embrace one another off the field first.
Mhm.
And then that makes, to me, everyone play harder for you on the field.
Yeah. It makes sense. And it's crazy to me that teams everywhere don't have the same philosophy. Like, in order to be the best version of yourself on the field, on the court, you have to be the best version of yourself off of it. And I think with being intentional, like you said, with different activities and promoting different resources that are out there, having this open door policy and being able to have open dialogues that can sometimes be uncomfortable is priority.
Yeah, and that is something that we talk about all the time. Like, um, you know, stay outside your comfort zone because that's where you grow.
Mm.
And I think it's also keeping coach and I on the same page as well, making sure that all aspects of our business are important. Like
Yeah.
we didn't hire a coach that only cares about wins and losses. Like, you have to love your people, you have to love your community.
Yeah.
And you know, I think the other part too is how quickly can you take these guys and get them connected with some families here. And we've got some Matador families that have been amazing, that invite these guys over to their houses
I love
and,
it.
you know, do cookouts, let them swim in their pool, and realize that, like, hey, when they have too much downtime, that's not a good thing. You know, like,
Hmm.
especially us guys, like we need to stay busy and be active with stuff.
Sure.
So, you know, it's planning things and just being intentional with all of our activities. I
Yeah.
think that's a big part. And then, like I said, there's certain players that may come to you in a state that isn't great. You
Hmm.
know, like what was their college experience like before they got to you? And a couple of these guys have come from rough situations. So mentally, they're already in a bad spot. Now they're dealing with another set of changes, and they're not really even thinking about that before they step out here like this.
Yeah.
They're just like, I want to keep playing soccer.
Yeah.
But
One focus, just play sport that I love.
yeah, but in talking with a couple of people, you know, I learned, like, had a really difficult college season this year, didn't get along with coaches, and that's put me in a rough spot. Okay, well, how are we working on addressing that so that you're not just like letting that weigh on you, even
Yeah.
though you're acting like you're fine, but you're not,
Mm.
and encouraging that to come out as well and work through that. So
Yeah.
those are a few examples of things that have hit us just, I mean, even this season in a short time, but you wouldn't know it because the chemistry on the field has been amazing, and these guys love each other, and I hope that goes into the culture that we're putting together here.
Yeah. I love it. And again, it comes back to intentionality. And I think sometimes it's not necessarily waiting for them to come to you, but you going to them. And like you said, maybe asking the coaches, hey, you notice something, or how's it going? Just doing a check in and just making that space available if they need it. I wonder too, with so many cultural differences, you've got players who are representing a number of different countries and I think mental health is viewed differently, and just the word mental health can like make people go, "Ugh, like what is that?" When you say mental health, like what comes to mind for you and maybe the team?
I think for me, mental health is not just your brain, it's just your overall well-being, you
Yeah.
know? And I think there's whether you're spiritual or not, there's an element of that to me of how's my spiritual side of things, how's my physical side of things. I mean, even me right now, it's like I'm so busy, I'm not getting to take care of my exercise like I would like to. And I know that we're all working through something
Yeah.
uh, at every single point in life, right? And so, um, but I'm a big believer in that Jim Rome saying where he says you're the average of the five people closest to you.
Yeah.
And we talk about like on the team, like the hard part about what we do is we have 23 guys. Well, we can only dress 18 every game, which means that you might get a chance if you're in the 18 to play, you still might not, but there's going to be five of you that are going to be sitting on the sideline that feel like I should be playing.
Yeah.
And so, how are you making sure those guys aren't chirping on the side that I should be playing over that person? And again, it's um, goes into your core values of rooting for each other.
Mhm.
And making sure that we're having open dialogues on why certain folks may be playing this game.
Yeah.
Like you're going to get your chance, but you need to be in a good space when you get your opportunity, otherwise you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
uh, and so there's some weird like juggling that we have to do that other teams don't even have to think about. But I think a lot of teams, especially when you start getting to higher levels of play, everyone feels like they're good enough to be starting, you know?
Yeah.
And so part of it too is like, how do you remove ego to get into the mental health piece?
Mhm.
But I still think it's a little bit of like taboo in some spaces,
Of course.
to be sharing or talking about that. But uh, the guys that we've noticed that are having issues have been very open, surprisingly enough. Like it hasn't
Yeah.
been like pulling teeth. I think they can recognize it, and we've been able to talk a little bit
Yeah.
through it. So, um, and we've seen some great positive change. It's reinforcing our values over and over again.
Mhm.
And again, I think what's great. I grew up in a great family situation. Was always encouraged, and for me, it's like when I have adversity hit me, there are times where it's like you're allowed to give yourself a moment to be upset or whatever. And then for me, it's okay, but don't stay there,
Yeah.
right? And so how do you do that? And I think everybody's different. Again, that's why I think professionals like that's an important side of what we're doing. I mean, sports now, you're hearing sports psychologists and sports therapy and all of these things that are coming into play. I think it's important no matter what you do, but especially in our game. There's so many different outside factors and elements that can be doing it, and not everybody can confront it, deal
Yeah.
with it for a moment and get out of it. So but that for me has just always been my big thing is like I know that if I sit on the negativity or the adversity for too long, it's not doing me any favors.
Yeah.
So leaning in on the people and the relationships and the people that are going to build you up. Again, that's why I think it's so important for your circle to be tight and good.
Yeah.
Um, and that's how I've dealt with it. And again, that's some of the principles that we create with strategically placing certain players with certain apartments,
Yeah.
to help guys that we know are like this guy is amazingly positive. He'll be a great influence in this apartment. So
Yeah. Surrounding him with great supports, because you can speak to that experience. And I think all of us, arguably, if we don't have a good support system, our mental health and other aspects are probably going to suffer. And if we have good supports, people who are going to encourage us and lift us up, it's all the better. And one of the things I appreciate, you speak to like this how versus why mentality. And so, like, yeah, instead of sitting in the why and dwelling on the negative, that's not going to serve any function and really easy to kind of rabbit hole in. It's this shift of how, okay, like I can acknowledge it, sit in my feels for a little bit and acknowledge and appreciate it for what it is, but how, like what actionable thing am I going to do to get out of it? Because Yeah, sitting in the why is not going to do me any good. So I can appreciate the mindset, and it sounds like you bring that, to the players and to the team, and I think it's really uplifting and it's really encouraging.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And it's really easy. Like, I don't know how much anyone you've had on has talked about just being grateful. To me, that's a big part of it too, is like we try and, we go participate in Boys and Girls Club almost every week. Um, we're showing up to places where people don't have the things that we have. They're not getting fed the way that we're getting fed. And that to me is, again, it's staying in a state of gratefulness of like too often I feel like all of us, especially through social media, and that's another area that we, you know, especially athletes.
Yeah.
When I think of like high level athletes, the one that comes to mind is Kevin Durant.
Mm,
I mean, he's constantly engaging with people that are talking down on him
yeah.
on social media, and it's like that is not serving you purpose,
Yeah.
right? And funny enough, we had one of our new guys come in, and he scored a goal, but he scored it off of a PK, and um, he's good. And someone on Twitter made a comment, and that was the first time in his life anybody's not praised him, in a public way like that.
Yeah.
And I just told him, like, he brought it to coach and I was like, can you believe that, like, I was like, hey man, like, you want to be a professional athlete? Like, this is part of the gig and you can't pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
You can let it fuel you, great. But like, to me, it's just don't drown yourself in the negativity,
Yeah.
um, everybody's a coach, everybody's a, expert on the
Sure.
sideline,
Yeah.
right? The reality is like you put those people in your situation, they're not accomplishing those goals. So
Yeah.
uh, part of that is to me is it's staying grateful. It's making sure you remember your why, which is why we're constantly doing these community engagement pieces. And I hope that people are seeing that, not
Yeah.
for to give us credit, but like that's part of the mission of the club.
Yeah.
And
More than just the sport.
totally. And the reality is too out here, and I hear this a lot, and it gets under my skin a little bit. But like, we're a football, basketball, baseball town, soccer, like who cares about soccer? And
Yeah.
to me, it's like A, if you're a sports fan, you should care. But B, let's think bigger than ourselves. Not everybody out here is going to be 6'3", 6'5", 200 and something pounds to go
Yeah.
play a high level basketball, football, or even baseball to some extent. Uh, but you look at our sport, the world's game, and it doesn't matter what you look like.
Mhm.
There's high level athletes playing from all over the world. Uh, and we have pockets of those communities all over our city.
Yeah.
And it's like for me, I want to give a hope, I want to give a dream to a kid that may not think that their sport is available to them here through our club.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger mission behind all of that for me.
Yeah. I think it speaks volumes. And I think what you're doing is wonderful for the community, whether you see it or not. I know that you guys have had a huge presence just in the past several months, just the way you're marketing and just making a presence in the community. As a fan, somebody who's on social media and sees you guys, I can feel the presence. It's part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast. I'm not just talking to professional level athletes. I want to talk to people the whole scope and from all different levels because it's a different experience. They have different perspectives. Um, and so I so appreciate that, Dustin.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I think yeah, I think that's an area where we'll continue to grow, and I hope we continue to get support. The great part about our guys is that they do say like when they leave Lubbock, they felt like a professional athlete here.
Yeah.
Where you go to a lot of other cities and you feel like a semi-pro, not even semi-pro
Yeah.
athlete.
Yeah.
But these guys are embracing it. And, my goal for next year is I really want to establish a relationship with a hospital in town where we do have the resources to get guys access to all arms of the medical spectrum
Yeah.
that we don't have right now.
Yeah.
But I think it's again, we got to continue to grow the brand. We got to get people excited about our sport, and people have to see how supporting us is good for Lubbock,
Yeah.
which means we just have to stay true to who we are.
Yeah. I love the vision. I love, again, the mission that you're doing, Dustin. And there's nothing more that I appreciate when I'm talking to somebody and they talk about their experiences with adversity and how they overcome it. And so I'm super hopeful for you and for the club, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. Is there anything that you want fans, people watching, to know about the Matadors, about sports, mental health?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is, again, this isn't a soccer team. This is Lubbock's team.
Yeah.
Uh, and I want people to be proud to, have the logo representing, and I want people to be proud of our players. And I could tell you that every person that comes to those games is a memory for those guys because they've never played in front of that many people in their life.
Yeah.
Lubbock is known for, being community oriented and being one of the friendliest cities in America. And the best way to do that is come support the club. The more we can get fans engaged, grow the game, I feel like we're going to go make some positive outcomes in our community. Um, and I think everyone who's watching, regardless whether you're in sports or not, should be thinking about, how do I stay well-rounded in my day-to-day so that I'm present and available in the best way for everyone. And it's not possible every day, but I think the big question is, are you surrounding yourself with the people and where you want to go?
Yeah.
If you can't answer that in a positive way, then that's probably the best place to start first is reevaluating the circle. And but we're all doing our best to get to where we want to go. And I'm just forever grateful for the people that have stepped up and supported us so far. And I really appreciate you, Cindy, for giving the Matadors a little love today, and
Yeah.
also talking about something that's important to our business.
I appreciate you, Dustin, what you're doing with Lubbock and with the soccer club. I think, your willingness to come on speaks volumes, and sharing your story and just the level of transparency. I'm so grateful.
Thank
So thank you for being on. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you guys again for tuning in to another episode of The Ball and Crane. I'm obviously wearing a different shirt than I was during the interview with Dustin. That's because the interviews are pre-recorded. So if you like the interview with Dustin, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all the things. A big shout out again to Dustin McCorkle, General Manager of the Lubbock Matadors Soccer Club, for coming on the show again today. And we will see you guys again with another great guest on The Ball and Crane.